Here we go. So I literally have a couple of slides, and then actually I'm just going to show you the product, which I think is much more powerful. So thank you very much for finding the time to join us today. We are obviously talking about the digital DPIA project, now named as a product called Dapian. I'm Dr. Leanne Hawkins. I'm Chief Operating Officer of Coalescent Limited, which is the organisation that is taking Dapian forwards. So a little bit about where this product came from then. So it originated from a public sector led collaboration project that was brought together by an organisation called Co-Fund Collaborate to Innovate. If you've never come across them before, then definitely worth checking them out. They are essentially a kind of a corporate crowdfunding platform. So in this case, Greater Manchester Combined Authority turned up to CC2I and said, we have this challenge with DPIAs. We know that many other public sector organisations will have a similar challenge. Can you go out and find those organisations and bring them together to collaborate on this? So that's what CC2I do. They find those organisations and bring them together. They then pool all the resources, pool all the funds, and they find a technology provider to do the development piece and kind of build the resulting product. So this started back in March, and we essentially were working with, these were the group of people that we brought together. Good mix of kind of local authorities, universities, health and care partnerships, as well as the ICO, and indeed some kind of bigger groups here that are represented in the form of the London Office of Technology and Innovation, which represents the London boroughs, and GMCA, which represents the kind of group of the Manchester authorities as well. So that was a 6-month project, and so we started it back in March. So that finished just about 5-6 weeks ago, and intention of this webinar is to kind of let you know how that project went and what was delivered as a result and kind of where we're now going from here. So our discovery phase then was essentially looking at, well, what's the challenge that we're trying to solve? It's generally that the collaborating organisations felt that DPIAs, the bulk of the heavy lifting was falling to an expert group of people, the IG teams, for example, and they're at capacity, and actually they're not the people that should be doing the bulk of these DPIAs. It should be the members of the project group, or various staff members that are involved in implementing these services. So why isn't that happening? Well, generally it's because there's a lack of awareness that these DPIAs need to be done. They don't know, staff members don't know what type of DPIA they need to do. They're totally put off by the process. It's really complex, it's full of jargon, and so that kind of, there's a need to simplify all of that. And then we also found that even within an organisation sometimes, so from department to department, there was a different process, there was a different template, there was a different way of doing things. So we wanted to introduce some consistency and some standards here as well. And then there was also a view that a DPIA is seen as a barrier, and oh, do I really have to do one? And to kind of change that perspective that they had and make sure that they don't just see these as a tick box exercise, that they are actually an enabler. You will probably get better results by doing one, and that you have to revisit them on a regular basis in line with how your project is progressing. So we took all of those challenges and came up with a product to address those. And essentially what we came up with was a collaborative approach to producing DPIAs that empowers staff members to take responsibility for doing them, at the same time as giving kind of the IG teams, the DPO, information asset owners, those sorts of groups of people, the facility to have more of a kind of an overarching role to play, to kind of administrate if need be. So I'm going to go on and do a demo now, but I'll just quickly talk through the different types of roles that we have in the product, and you'll see me using these roles as I go through. So we have general staff members. They can go on to complete the kind of screening questions. That will tell them what type of DPIA, or if they need to do a DPIA, and therefore what type of DPIA they need to do. It will then allow them to go on to complete those DPIAs and then invite help, expertise in from other people. So maybe they want some input from some colleagues or their manager, or maybe they want something from their IG team. So it allows them to be kind of collaborative in that process. We then have third parties, which is essentially anyone that's outside of your organisation, so your suppliers, your partners, whether that's your neighbouring local authorities, your local hospital trust, or your software providers that you're working with. And that access is designed to give them specific access to specific elements of the product, to maybe provide their credentials or to fill in the bits that are their bits to do, rather than you having that kind of email exchange or filling out your IT templates or whatever it is that you're doing at the moment to fill in those bits. We then have signatories, so that's a role that's intended for your IG expertise, your information asset owners, anyone that either has expertise in the area or is responsible for sign off. And then we have advisory, which covers your DPOs and your call-to-cut guardians, anyone making recommendations in the process. So let's go on and show you what actually was developed. So as I say, this was a 6-month project. It's now finished as a project. It is now kind of business as usual for those collaborating organisations, and indeed is being rolled out wider into the public sector. So here's the resulting product. And I'll talk a little bit about how we're going to evolve this over the next few months. There's much more to come as well. But for now, we are focused heavily on the process of completing signing off DPIAs. So this is the product website. It's where everybody will turn up to, regardless of their role in the system, will arrive to play their part. I just need to tell the result of that. So I'm going to sign myself in as a general staff member. And we're going to go through this process of completing a DPIA. So this is my dashboard. It essentially represents everything that I have going on in my world. I do a lot of demos, so you can see that this dashboard is quite busy. For normal staff members, they may only do a couple a year, so this obviously will look slightly different for those people. So if we want to go and complete a DPIA, then we can do that here. Equally though, if you wanted to, you don't have to land your staff members on that dashboard. You can deep link them and take them directly to this DPIA, so that by using this link here, it will take them directly to here, so they can start that process much deeper into the product, rather than having to take those couple of steps that I've just been through. Before we do that, what we might do though is have a little bit of a search internally for maybe a DPIA that I'm just going to contribute to, or maybe I lack IG expertise and I want to get a sense of how other people have completed DPIAs, and therefore help me to complete my own. So that's just one of the features we have, where you can search across various different parameters to help those non-IG experts to start to get a sense of how to answer these questions. So that's internal search. We also have external search here, which is exactly the same principle, but it contains all the DPIAs from all of the other organisations that are using this product. So essentially it forms a library for non-IG experts to go and get examples from other organisations. So I don't know, maybe you're about to implement Microsoft Teams. Well, you won't be the first organisation in the world to do that. So by looking in the external search, you might find a similar organisation to yours that's doing a similar kind of project to yours, and you might take a steer from how they've completed their DPIA. Now, we're saying that external search only surfaces DPIAs that organisation has explicitly said or flicked the switch to say that, yes, I'm happy for that DPIA to be shared. So you're not kind of saying, you're not opening up your entire caseload of DPIAs, you're only opening up those that you're willing to share with other people. But I'll talk a bit more about that feature in a moment. So we'll say that we've we'll say that we've run a couple of those searches and we're happy, and we will go on to complete our DPIA. So these are just my details, and these are the only personal details that we are storing in the product. They're just pulling through from my profile. And then we're going on to name our DPIA. So what department is it in? What's the project name that you're working on? What's the project description? I'm going to say use of teams to deliver care and support assessments as an example. Who my sponsor is, who the DPI owner is, and my IG lead if I know that. So we've now named it, and we're moving on to the screening question. So this is the sort of first part in the process where you can see the input that the collaborating organisations and the IG expertise around the table, including the ICO, this is where their kind of input comes in. So we took all the questions from the screening tools that those various organisations had and came up with a version that was kind of best practice and got that signed off by the ICO, and essentially removed all of the complex language as best as we could. Where we still felt like that language warranted further explanation, you'll see dotted throughout the product these green text boxes, and those are essentially us putting experts on the shoulders of non-experts to help them in completing their DPIAs. Now, I'm not going to propose that you're able to read all these questions. We only have a short amount of time, so I'm going to whiz through them as quickly as possible. There are only 13 in the screening questions. I'm answering them totally at random. But if anyone wants access to this product beyond this webinar, I'm very happy to do that. Just get in touch and we'll open it up to you so that you can go through in great detail and scrutinise all the questions that we're using throughout the product and generally how the product works. So in this case then, I've answered those screening questions and it's suggesting that I need to do a full DPIA. In addition to a full DPIA, we are also covering a CCTV DPIA, an international data transfer DPIA, and law enforcement as well. So worth saying as well, if this had decided that I didn't need to do a DPIA, it wouldn't just leave me there. It suggests that I go and have a conversation with my IG team to kind of make sure that that was the right decision. And if it wasn't, I can just do one, overwrite that and do one just because anyway. So I know I need to do a full DPIA in this case, so I will go on and do that. It's just telling me what's going to happen next in this process there. And now that is us essentially, that's us essentially started this process of completing a DPIA. So you'll see here, these are the screening questions that we've just completed. I could revisit them by opening that up to see how I answered them, or I could download them as a PDF and save them somewhere else if I wanted to do that, but obviously they are also saved here. So we'll go on to complete that full DPIA. There's my full DPIA, and now I need to select the person that I want to fill this in. Now the user that's signed in will always be at the top of that list, so that's me. I'm probably going to do this DPIA myself. However, I could find someone else to do it. Maybe I'm a team manager and I want my project manager to do it. I could search for them by phone, name or email and assign it to them to do as well. But in this case, I'm going to do it myself. It's in progress, which is what you would expect. Again, a bit of setting expectations. And then finally, we now have an additional thing in our list. So we had the screening questions we did, and now we have a new full DPIA thing. It has a status of open, which means it isn't complete yet. So we need to go and complete that. So this is our standardized sort of template for our full DPIA. You'll see throughout the product, as I said before, these green text boxes helping to put that expertise in the hands of those non-experts. The other thing you'll see is we've implemented the shortest route possible through this form. Some of the templates we saw were very lengthy, and that was just one of the barriers that staff members were finding. They were just generally put off by the length of these forms. So as an example, if I say no to this, nothing really happens. If I say yes, only at that point do these additional questions that I need to answer kind of unveil? So I'm going to go through the shortest route possible that I know how to get through this form. I'm not proposing that you read these questions. As I said, please do just shout. I will happily give you access to this product to scrutinise these forms yourselves. Now, as a staff member, I'm following all the guidance in here. I'm answering this DPIA as best as I can, and I'm going to get to a point, let's say, that actually I've reached the level of my expertise. I don't know how to answer this particular question, so I'm going to go and ask for some help from someone else. So we're going to stop where we are, save our changes, and we are going to ask for some help from my information asset owner. So there's my information asset owner. I will ask that person for some help. Please, can you help me? Yeah, I could ask them a specific question that they could respond to. Maybe that answer would enable me to continue in this process some more. But in this case, I'm just generally asking them to input to this DPIA. You'll see now that this is assigned to the information asset owner. We're not expecting these people to hang around in this platform waiting to be told to do something. They will get their email notifications that come through. So consider this to be their normal working day email inbox. This happens to be Gmail, it could be Outlook or whatever other email client you are using. So this notification comes into their email inbox. They open that, they can see here that Leanne is asking for some help. And if I follow this link here, it will take me to that DPIA to provide that support. Now, if she'd have asked me a specific question, maybe I don't need to go in and log in and provide that support. All I need to do is reply to this email and say, the information you need is here, and then I could maybe attach something that might be helpful. So a picture of a garden gate as an example. So in the same way that you reply to every other email in the world, just let that upload and then send. So that email has sent. That email will then land back into the system. So here's the comment that Leanne said, can you help me with this? When that email arrives back in a few moments, it will fall underneath here. So you see that kind of commentary building. It would also have notified Leanne via email to say that she's had that response come in. More likely though, that information asset owner is going to follow the link in their email and is going to log into the platform to provide that support. So there's that person, I'm logging in as that person. So as well as your email notifications, the system has its own notification as well. Exactly the same notification falls into here. You can follow that and it will also take you to the same DPIA that you're being asked to help with. So I can see here Leanne's doing a great job of completing her DPIA, and I'm just going to carry on with this process and help her. So a few more bits here. Now I could, of course, on the bit she's asked me to do and then assign it back to her to carry on in the process. Leanne may well then go around and invite some feedback or some help from all sorts of other people. So we'll presume that we're going around the houses and we've done exactly the same steps that we've just been through by assigning it to those people and asking them to support. Now here's just another example of where that expertise has kind of come in. So the group, the forms that templates that we had often listed consent as the top thing in this list. And the feedback was actually that we want people to at least consider these other things before that. So that's just one of the examples where we've kind of been quite specific in the way that we've developed this product to support these people. So I'm nearly at the end, so I will just flick through a few more fields until we get to the risks section, which we are very nearly there. Okay, so here we are now at the most important part of this form, the identifying risks. What you're seeing here is a manual data entry for risks, but in our next release, we have automated risk generation coming. So that as a feature essentially is the system taking the information that it's been given earlier in the form and then proactively suggesting a series of sensible risks and mitigations. The user can then choose to accept that risk, decline that risk, or edit that risk to be more suitable. So they have a few options at that point, and then indeed supplement those automated risks with their own manual ones. So that's what I'm doing here, is entering some manual risks. So what's the likelihood of harm before you've mitigated? What's the severity before you've mitigated? What's your mitigating action? And notice here we're not using the word mitigation. When we tested that with end users, they didn't really understand it, so we changed that language to reduce or eliminate the risk. There's loads of examples of that throughout the form. So who owns that action? On what date is that going to be done? And then what's the likelihood of harm after reducing the risk? What's the severity after reducing the risk? And then your overall risk score automatically generating there. You continue to add as many risks and mitigations as you need to until you've got that list comprehensively complete. So what else you can do here as well is you can attach various files. So maybe you've got an information sharing agreement that relates to this DPIA. Maybe your supplier, you've invited your supplier to come into this platform under the third-party login, and maybe they're going to upload some credentials or whatever else it is here. So you can start to build a library of additional documents that you need to support this DPIA. Right, so as the information asset owner, which is the role I'm playing at the moment, at some point this DPIA will come to me, whether I've been asked to contribute to it or not. It will be pushed onto me to consider for sign off. I'm then going to make a decision about this DPIA, and probably based on the risks here, I wouldn't probably need this to go onto my DPO, but just for purposes of this demo, I'll show you how that step works. So this is an optional step, but this is the way that your DPO gets involved to make their recommendations, or indeed the Caldecott Guardian having a similar role. So we'll stop where we are here, and in the same way as we kind of assigned it around for support, we will assign it to our DPO. So there's our data protection officer. And just let that person in. Yeah. So there's our data protection officer, so we'll assign it to them, and we'll say something to them. Are you happy with the, maybe you might say, and submit. So it's now assigned to our data protection officer. Again, we're not expecting our data protection officer to hang around in here all day, every day. They have their email inbox, and it's giving them their notification there to say that there's something there that they need to do. Follow that link and it will take them to that DPIA to provide their recommendations. So I'll log in as my DPO. This is where the process is obviously slightly different. Oh, no, please don't do this. Okay, right. Let's change. I have no idea why today, of all days, that won't work. Let me just try it once more. No, someone's obviously messed around with my... Let's try a super admin password instead. Okay, right. I'm logged in as a super admin, which is not quite what I wanted to do. I wanted to do a DPO, but as a super admin, I can do everything that a DPO can do anyway. So we will just have to... Oh my God. Right. I realised why my DPO wasn't working. This was totally the wrong link. Let's try that again. DPO. There's my data protection officer. I'm now in the right instance. It will let me in. Oh, that's silly me. Right, so my notifications then, my DPO set, my information asset owner asking for my recommendations there. I'm going to look at this DPIA and probably just want to jump straight to the risks, see what they are and decide what my recommendations might be. So I do have some recommendations, but first of all, we are going to submit this. My recommendations are done as such. So you add your new task and then you have this option here, DPO recommends changes. So I could start by doing that and make my recommended changes using this form. Or I have some other options available to me as well. I can recommend that this DPIA goes to the ICO essentially, or that I can recommend this DPIA is signed off. So you can go through various cycles of making recommendations, and then at some point you're going to kind of come to a decision there. So for the purpose of this demo, we'll say that we're just happy that we're signing this off. So recommending sign off. It's only the DPO that can complete that as a form. It's only the DPO that is recommending these changes. It's in progress and submit. So you have this additional thing in your list here. So we need to go and complete that recommendation. Can the risk be mitigated? Yes. And then anything you want to give in terms of advice, and submit that. Now that as an action, by completing this form, will have notified that information asset owner, as well as this person that created this DPIA, that that action has happened, and therefore they need to think about their next steps. So also as a DPO, I'm going to make a status change. I've done my review. I'm happy that this is signed off. I could selected a different response depending on my the form that I filled in. Maybe I'm recommending some changes. Maybe I'm recommending it goes to the ICO. In this case, I have recommended that it is signed off. So that is the status that I am putting. So that then prompts the information asset owner. So we'll go back to that role, information asset owner. That email that they would have received would have come in and prompted them to take some action, but also in their dashboards, they also have these various filters, which means that they can dig out all the DPIAs that are ready for approval, or sorry, are approved and ready for sign off. So here's the one we've been working on. I'd open that. I can see here my DPO is recommending sign off. Isn't that great? Open his recommendations. I'm not going to act on any of that advice. I'm happy, so we'll just go ahead and sign that off. So all I have to do now is change the status to signed off. So only people with the right permissions are allowed to do this. So you can't just have general staff members having access to these sign-off facilities. It is restricted to certain users. So this would also be the point in the process if my DPO had recommended that I made some changes, but as an information asset owner, I'm going to ignore them for whatever reason. This would be where I would write why I'm ignoring why I'm ignoring those recommendations as well. So that's just an extra area for you to fill in if that's useful. So that's now telling me that this DPIA will be locked, and essentially what that means is you have a stamp record in time how this DPIA looked at the point it was signed off. So there are a few last steps in the process then. One is the review. So this date could have been set by the staff member that was completing this DPIA, but it can also be overwritten by the signatories, so the information asset owners or the IG team, and indeed the DPO or the Caldecott Guardian could overwrite that. Maybe they think that that review should happen sooner than the staff member did. So we'll put today's date so you can see that then we have this kind of flag that comes up. So what this review element does is the system will then start firing out notifications to the person that created it, the person that signed it off, and the DPO to say that this date is approaching and that they need to go in and take some action to review this, or just move the review date further ahead if that's the decision that's made. And then you also have your final task, which is the feature that I was talking about earlier. At the moment, that's set to no, and therefore it is not appearing in the external search. But users with certain permissions have the the facility to change that to yes. And so in the spirit of the product, we ask wherever possible, this DPIA doesn't contain anything sensitive, so wherever possible, please do change this to yes, so that other people can make use of it and learn from the work that you're doing. And then very finally, you have your version control here. So if you ever wanted to jump back and see who did what at what time and what various versions these forms were in, and maybe revert back to them if you wanted to, but full audit trail on each DPIA as to what happened to that particular DPIA. So then that just leaves the review steps. So on everyone's dashboards, they have this review section, and this contains all of the DPIAs that they are responsible for reviewing, or they have been asked to be involved in reviewing. So under their review section, you see I've not been very good with my reviews here. I've got loads I need to review, but this is the one we've been working on at the top here. So if I needed to, I'd go back into here, make any changes, and then go through the sign-off steps again until we were happy that the DPIA reflected our kind of current status of the project. So that is essentially the length and breadth of the product that we have at the moment. As I say, it's comprehensively dealing with the collaborative approach to DPIAs. Over the next few months, we are rolling out a roadmap of things. So one of them being that automated risk generation I was talking about. Another being we want to implement an information sharing agreement module, as well as an asset register and a ROPA as well. So the product is very much going to evolve over the next few months, but for now it's extremely valuable as it is, as we're kind of finding out by the amount of interest that we're getting and the number of new sign-ups that we've had in the last, it's only been live for sort of 3 or 4 weeks now. But there's been great interest, so that's all really promising. So just summarising there the features that we have, we've got all our screening tools, we've standardised our assessments, we've got all the guidance and the jargon removed from the product. It's a collaborative approach to producing your DPIAs. It's mobile and tablet optimized, it's secured with 2-factor authentication, it's entirely kind of cloud-based as well. So the only access requirements are that you have access to a modern browser. That's it. So here then we're talking about the general benefit of the product, and I suppose that the highlight from here is just to say that it's intended to empower your wider business to take responsibility for their own DPIAs, whilst giving the IG teams and your DPOs kind of oversight and control as well. So in the project then we asked the collaborating organisations to come up with a business case, and they're the best place to do that. So that's what they went away and did. So they looked at what the average salary of the individual that the heavy lifting was falling to at the moment, and that was on average amongst the collaborating organisations 45k per annum. Then we looked at the number of hours that it was possible to work in that year. So on average, that was 1,680, which takes into account your holidays and things. And then on average, how many DPIAs was that person doing in a year? And it was just over 23, which gave them a cost of about £2,000 per DPIA. So we then implemented Dapian in those organisations, kept all of the other parameters exactly the same, so same people, same number of hours, but the number of DPIs that they were able to complete in that time period that we then extrapolated out to a year went up drastically to nearly 65, and that then gave you a cost per DPIA of just shy of £700. So taking the first set without Dapian minus with Dapian gives you your savings there of just shy of 64%, and per DPIA saving of 1,200. And the very last slide that I have really here before I kind of invite your feedback is our pricing. We're entirely open about our pricing. We also didn't kind of dictate the pricing here at Coalescent. What we did was we turned around to the collaborating organisations and said, look, if we want you to kind of take this forward and recommend that other people use it, how much do you think would be sensible? How much you've been quoted by other similar kind of products? And the answer that came back was, well, about between somewhere 30 and 40k, which we were quite shocked at. We we didn't want to be anywhere near that. So we chose to pitch it at our kind of list price for the public sector being just under the kind of 10k procurement threshold. So we've set it at 9.5k per annum. But we have at the moment our introductory offer, of which I have one spot left, of 6k for the subscription instead of the list price of 9.5. We also have discounts for any organisations that are affiliated with the IRMS, the Institute for Record Management Society. If any of you are and you're interested in the product, let me know and I'll let you know what that discount offer is as well for that. So what does the implementation look like? Well, it's software as a service. Essentially, we handle all of that for you. I have no need to speak to your IT team unless they want to speak to me, which is usually the case. But we can, in theory, implement this without you kind of needing to do anything your side. Slots are available for the second week in December. It takes us about 3 days to get that up and running for you, so it's pretty quick. And then we work with you to kind of roll that out throughout your wider organisation. Your subscription cost covers everything that you would need, so unlimited number of users, unlimited number of DPIAs, and it's fully hosted and managed, and we provide training as well. Right, so it'd be feedback that you have, how you sort of feel that we did. Is there anything that you've seen that you really don't like or that you do like? It'd be great to hear from anyone. Anyone got any questions about the product? Anyone want me to go back and revisit anything else?
Can I just ask one question?
Yeah, Daryl.
It's reference to the costings.
Yeah.
As a local with a fire service, under our tendering procedures, we would have to agree a length of time and then times it by that amount, and whether or not you then come under that criteria. So if it comes, say, 3 or 4 years and it's over 25,000, we'd have to go out and get 3 tenders to be able to agree that. And the other question that I've got is, if we ended the subscription with you, do we retain the data and the DPIAs that we've completed?
Yes. Okay. So first comment on your procurement cycle, that's fine. We're also on G Cloud. I don't know if that's helpful to you, but we are on G Cloud as well. All that on does. Yeah. So that might help you with that. In terms of if you choose to leave us, obviously we hope that you never will, but we understand that that's not realistic. Absolutely. At the end of that, we will agree with you the format that you would like your data back, your DPIAs back, and we will provide that to you free of charge as part of your subscription.
Thank you. I just want to give one positive comment. We currently do ours internally, and most of the things you've brought up we do struggle with, especially the level of understanding. I think I'm writing about 70-80% of each one.
Yeah.
Rather than just looking at the assessment of them.
Yeah, and you're not dissimilar to all of the collaborating organisations we've been working with, and indeed the number of organisations that have taken this since then as well. You're all struggling with the same thing, which is why we're really pleased that this has been a collaborative project in the public sector, so that everyone has kind of had their input, and we're all solving and tackling the same challenge. Any other questions? Anyone want me to go over anything else? Revisit any areas of that demo? It's fine if you don't. I'll take your silences. It's great. Likewise, if you really didn't like anything, that's just as valuable for us to know. We're not in the business of trying to sell something that doesn't suit everyone. So if there were any areas that you felt were not quite right or you think could be better, do get in touch and let us know. That would be really useful as well. So I'll give you my contact details. If you don't already have them, I'll leave them up here for a minute. If anyone does want to take advantage of that last introduction offer place, then do shout. It's first come, first served basis, and we can obviously provide you with everything that you need to get us up as a supplier, and I just need a purchase order to kind of secure that slot for you. You can also visit our website, dapian.uk. It has everything that you would need to know about the product, pricing, the lot. We're entirely transparent about all of that, business case as well. We also have web chat. It's manned by myself and my colleague Jess, who's also on this webinar. So we would pick anything up pretty much instantly that you might want to send through to us, any questions that you have. All that's left to say, though, is thank you very much for finding the time to join us today. If you have any questions as well, you feel free to pop them in the chat and I'll respond to them there. But otherwise, thank you, and you know where you are, know where we are if you need us. Cheers very much.